Chapter 2496. As expected, all the elders' gazes landed on Lan Borong and the other disciples. It was obvious that something unexpected had happened in the Battle of Zhuolu. Lan Borong looked at the elders in front of him and said, "Let's go to the conference hall first." The elders nodded their heads one after another. The joy on their faces when they were waiting had already disappeared, and it was replaced by a heavy feeling. The results this time were probably worse than they had expected. Conference hall. According to Lan Borong's arrangement, other than the participating disciples, all the other disciples had gone back to rest. Only the participating disciples and the elders entered the conference hall together. As soon as they entered, all the elders couldn't help but ask, "Great Elder, what exactly happened?" All the elders were confused. They couldn't understand. With the strength of their Lan family team, it shouldn't be possible for them to have a bad result. Could it be that they had been persecuted? Lan Borong's expression was heavy. He sighed helplessly. This time, our Lan family's results in the Battle of Zhuolu were very bad. We were ranked 20th. Following Lan Borong's words, all the elders' expressions changed. It was as if they had heard an impossible answer. Our Lan family has never been ranked in the top 10. This time, with the young master leading the team, our results should be better. How did we end up with such a result? Lan Borong shook his head. "I'm not too sure about this. We'll have to ask them." As soon as this was said, the gazes of all the elders landed on the participants. They had to figure out what had happened in the middle of this. "Tell us what happened from the moment you entered the Battle of Zhuolu to the end." Looking at the elders' serious expressions, the participating disciples didn't dare to hide anything. They immediately recounted the entire process. Actually, they were regretting it. If they didn't have the intention to snatch Limitless Palace's elixirs, their results wouldn't be so bad. Limitless Palace. When the group of elders found out that the culprit behind their team's poor results was Limitless Palace, almost all of the elders' faces were filled with anger. Ever since Limitless Palace expressed their unwillingness to interact with the Lan family and Limitless Palace were at odds. Who would have thought that something like this would happen during the Battle of Zhuolu? Damn it! This Limitless Palace is really incompatible with our family. I think we have to take some action. The second elder's face was filled with anger. After that incident, he advocated to teach Limitless Palace a lesson. However, in the end, the family felt that there was no need to do so. Not interacting with each other for the rest of their lives was already a form of opposition. Lan Borong, on the other hand, wasn't as angry as the second elder. Speaking of which, we can't blame Limitless Palace's team for this matter. It was our team that went to look for trouble first. However, we didn't expect Limitless Palace to have a helper like the heaven-devouring pavilion. Great Elder, this Limitless Palace's young palace master is also the wife of the Heavenly Dipper Sect's young sect master. A disciple said slowly. Chapter 2497. After the disciples finished recounting everything that happened in the Battle of Zhuolu, the elders couldn't help but fall into silence. Although Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude towards Lan Qinyan made them extremely unhappy, Bailey Hongzhuang's strength was indeed not to be underestimated. "You guys must be tired after running around for so many days. Go back and rest first," Lan Borong said. Once these words came out, the disciples who participated in the Battle of Zhuolu immediately retreated as though they were pardoned. They stayed in the discussion hall and felt the low pressure. It wasn't a normal kind of pressure. After all the disciples had left, the elders exchanged glances with each other, each having their own thoughts. This Limitless Palace's young palace master seemed to have appeared out of thin air. Could it be that Limitless Palace has been secretly developing all this time? Third Elder's face was solemn. They didn't pay attention to this news before. They didn't expect Limitless Palace, Big Dipper Sect, and Slaughter Sky Tower to have countless connections. In the past, there weren't many forces that had a good relationship with Limitless Palace. They didn't expect them to have so many allies in just a few years. This wasn't what they wanted to see. I've heard of this Bailey Hongzhuang's name before. A few days ago, Medicine Sect and Big Dipper Sect's alchemist competition was Bailey Hongzhuang who obtained first place. Logically speaking, Bailey Hongzhuang should be a disciple of Big Dipper Sect. I don't know when she became Limitless Palace's young palace master. Fourth elder said. In reality, they weren't unfamiliar with the name Bailey Hongzhuang. It was just that no one knew of the relationship between Bailey Hongzhuang and Limitless Palace before this. It really made them helpless. Now that things have come to this, Limitless Palace's development will probably be even faster in the next few years. We have to pay more attention. Lan Borong's expression was slightly calm. There was no point in pursuing this matter now. It was more important for them to prepare for what was coming next. Great Elder, the Primal Chaos Tablet appeared in the Battle of Zhuolu this time. I wonder if young Palace Master had a breakthrough? All the elders looked at Lan Borong. This was what they were most concerned about. In the Lan family's history, it was recorded that the Primal Chaos Tablet and the Rainbow God Pearl were inextricably linked. As long as one entered the Primal Chaos Tablet's origin world, the Rainbow God Pearl would be upgraded. Therefore, they had high hopes for Lan Qingyan this time. Although the Lan clan's ranking this time was very bad, as long as Lan Qingyan's Rainbow Divine Pearl improved, then it was worth it. Lan Borong sighed. Young Master is in a bad mood now. He didn't say much along the way, and I didn't ask. Let's wait until young Master calms down before asking. I believe the Patriarch and Master Kuang should know. Hearing Lan Borong's words, the group of elders all nodded. They knew Lan Qingyan's temperament better than anyone else. Only the clan head and Lan Jingquang could convince her wholeheartedly. They just had to report this matter to the family head and Master Kuang. Since Limitless Palace's young palace master Bailey Hongzhuang obtained first place, then 3 months later when the icy snow god's pond opens, she will come. I want to see how capable this Bailey Hongzhuang is. The dissatisfaction between second elder's brows did not dissipate. This Bailey Hongzhuang was really too much. She actually made their young palace master kowtow and apologize in front of everyone. This was really intolerable. Chapter 2498. Lan Borong looked at the dissatisfied expressions of the elders and felt a little helpless in his heart. He wasn't dissatisfied with Bailey Hongzhuang. On the contrary, Bailey Hongzhuang was a remarkable existence for being able to achieve such results at such a young age. Most importantly, Bailey Hongzhuang had that person's shadow on her. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't related to Lan Yunxiao, he couldn't dislike Bailey Hongzhuang. Moreover, he felt that they were too similar. If they weren't related by blood, it was impossible for them to be so similar. He must report this matter to the head of the family as soon as possible. If Bailey Hongzhuang really was that child, then all of this would be incredible. After leaving the meeting hall, Lan Borong headed for the house head's residence without hesitation. The house head had been in seclusion all these years. As long as there wasn't a big problem, he wouldn't appear. In fact, the house head had always been brooding over Lan Yunxiao's matter. The elder's actions had greatly disappointed the head of the family. Most importantly, the head of the family did not want to see Lan Jingquang again. When the incident happened, the house head was in seclusion. It was a crucial moment for him to break through his bottleneck. At that time, Lan Jingquang probably knew that the house head wouldn't come out to deal with this matter, so he chose that time to act. By the time the house head came out of seclusion and found out, Lan Yunxiao and his family had already disappeared. At that time, he was heartbroken by Lan Jingquang's actions. Unfortunately, Lan Jingquang had already colluded with second elder and the other elders. No matter how much he objected, it was useless. Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing could no longer tolerate it under such circumstances, and he could only watch helplessly as it happened without being able to do anything about it. This matter wasn't just a pain in the house head's heart. It was also an unspeakable pain in his heart. The house head had angrily reprimanded Lan Jingquang and severely punished him. Unfortunately, he couldn't find any trace of Lan Yunxiao. Even though so much time had passed, he knew that the house head had never given up. No matter what the outcome was, he needed to discuss this matter with the house leader. He could not tell Lan Jingquang's people. Otherwise, who knew what kind of trouble would ensue? If Bailey Hongzhuang was really the child from back then, they had already let her down at that time. They absolutely could not let that kind of thing happen again. Not long after, Lan Borong appeared in front of the patriarch. Seeing Lan Borong's arrival, Lan Hongtai's expression was indifferent as he said, "You're here." Even though Lan Hongtai was just standing there quietly, the aura and authority of a superior had already been displayed. It could be said that he was born with it. If Lan Yunxiao saw the current Lan Hongtai, he would notice that compared to 19 years ago, the corners of Lan Hongtai's eyes had traces of wind and frost. His sharp eyes also revealed some helplessness and sorrow. Lan Borong bowed to Lan Hongtai, patriarch. Lan Hongtai nodded slightly. "Qin Yan and the others have returned. How are the results?" He no longer cared about many things in the Lan family, but the power was still in his hands. He had no way of handing over the enormous Lan family to Lan Jingquang. This kind of ambitious person would even harm his own brothers. He was simply inhuman. Chapter 2499. Although it was a question, Lan Hongtai didn't pay much attention to it. Lan Borong shook his head and said, "Qin Yan met an unexpected opponent in the Battle of Zhuolu. Her right arm was crippled, which affected her strength. As a result, we only ranked 20th. Lan Hongtai couldn't help but frown. Our Lan family hasn't encountered such a situation for many years. What kind of extraordinary seedling has appeared in the younger generation? The results of the Battle of Zhuolu would affect the family's development in the next few years. Therefore, Lan Hongtai's expression couldn't help but change when he learned that the Lan family's ranking was so poor. The young palace master of Wuji Palace, Bailey Hongzhuang. She is very powerful and has never appeared as the young palace master of Wuji Palace before. This time, Bailey Hongzhuang won first place in the Battle of Zhuolu when she led Wuji Palace's team. She also won first place in the individual competition. Lan Borong's voice was filled with admiration and admiration. Although the relationship between Wuji Palace and the Lan family wasn't good, Bailey Hongzhuang's results were praiseworthy in anyone's eyes. Hearing Lan Borong's words, Lan Hongtai's gaze deepened as he looked into the distance, as if he was recalling the past. When Yun Xiao led his team to participate in the Battle of Zhuolu for the first time, he also achieved such good result. Unfortunately, after Yun Xiao left, our Lan family never won again. Lan Hongtai's voice was filled with nostalgia and sadness. Lan Yunxiao was the son he was most proud of. Not only was he powerful, but he also cultivated diligently and was extremely friendly. Therefore, Lan Yunxiao easily won the respect of the entire family. At such a young age, he had already established his position as the young master, and no one could shake him. When Lan Yunxiao was the young master, the Lan family had gradually grown stronger under his leadership. Lan Hongtai couldn't help but think that if Lan Yunxiao was still alive, the Lan family would be in a much more prosperous state now. Then, this old man would be able to cultivate in peace and ignore worldly affairs. Ever since they were young, Lan Yunxiao had always been sensible and was Lan Hongtai's greatest pride. It was a pity that he couldn't even protect his own son and let his granddaughter suffer such a great grievance. Although he had always been proud of Lan Yunxiao, he had never overlooked Lan Jingquang. He didn't expect Lan Jingquang to do such a deranged thing. He was simply a beast. He had once wanted to kill this bastard with his own hands, but all the elders in the clan had stopped him. He only had two sons, Lan Yunxiao and Lan Jingquang. If both of them died, then there would be no one to take over the position of househead. In fact, he didn't care about these things at all. He only wanted to get rid of that unfilial son with his own hand. However, as the head of an aristocratic family, he couldn't be stubborn. At least, as long as he didn't hand over the position of the head of the family, no one would dare to have the slightest objection. Lan Borong looked at Lan Hongtai, who couldn't help but feel sad at the mention of Lan Yunxiao. That scene back then was really nostalgic. Patriarch, I actually discovered something during the Battle of Zhuolu, but I can't confirm it. Lan Borong said slowly. After seeing Lan Hongtai's sad appearance, he couldn't help but wonder if he should tell Lan Hongtai the news. Chapter 2500. Looking at Lan Borong's hesitant appearance, Lan Hongtai couldn't help but frown. His wise and sharp eyes shot straight at Lan Borong. Just say it. There's no need to beat around the bush. For so many years, Lan Borong had always firmly supported him. Something that could make Lan Borong so hesitant was probably not simple. After thinking about it for a moment, Lan Borong decided to tell Lan Borong about this matter. Lan Hongtai was able to survive such a big incident in the past. Even if his judgment was wrong this time, Lan Borong believed that it wouldn't be a big blow to Lan Hongtai. Master, I found that the young palace master of Wuji Palace, Bailey Hongzhuang, looks very much like Ling Bing and Yun Xiao. I can see their shadows from her face. Hearing this, Lan Hongtai's expression suddenly changed. He looked at Lan Borong with a burning gaze, his eyes full of anxiety. Is what you said true? Lan Borong nodded. It's true. I never thought there would be someone who looked so similar to Ling Bing. When I first saw her, I was also shocked. But they really look so similar. Could she be that child? After a brief shock, Lan Hongtai quickly regained his composure, but his hands under his sleeves were still trembling uncontrollably. For so many years, he had never received any news about Yun Xiao and Ling Bing. As for his granddaughter, it was impossible for her to survive in that situation. No, you and I know what happened back then. Yixuan's dantian was broken when she was young. Chuani was helpless and couldn't save her life even with rare treasures. The Bailey Hongzhuang you mentioned had outstanding ability and tyrannical strength, so her dantian was naturally intact. Moreover, if they are really alive, why hasn't there been any news for so many years? Hearing Lan Hongtai's words, Lan Borong's expression showed some hesitation. It was because this was impossible that he didn't dare to be sure. If he knew that they were really alive in this world, then he was almost certain that Bailey Hongzhuang was Lan Yixuan. If not, he would never believe that people who were not related by blood would look so similar. Patriarch, I've thought about what you said, but it's too similar. If you had seen it with your own eyes, your thoughts would be the same as mine. In fact, for so many years, we have never received any news about Yun Xiao and the others. Although the hope is slim, we cannot conclude that they have died. If they were really still alive, wouldn't the current Bailey Hongzhuang and Yun Xiao be as good as each other? The person who was truly chosen by the Rainbow Divine Pearl is Yi Xian. Hearing this, Lan Hongtai couldn't help being shocked. For so many years, he had been thinking that if that incident had not happened, Yi Xian would definitely be extremely outstanding now. Her degree of excellence would very likely surpass Lan Qinyan. Like father, like daughter. How outstanding was Lan Yunxiao back then? Moreover, Lan Yixuan was the chosen successor of the Rainbow Pearl. He was almost certain that Bailey Hongzhuang's excellence would far exceed their expectations. Unfortunately, he would never have the chance to see this scene again. Are you sure? Lan Hongtai stared at Lan Borong. He had always believed in Lan Borong's judgment. In fact, he also hoped it was true. Chapter 2501. Lan Borong nodded with certainty. I'm sure. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was related to Lan Yunxiao because they looked too similar. He believed that any elder who saw Bailey Hongzhuang would have the same thought as him. The family head must be the same as well. Since that's the case, you should investigate Bailey Hongzhuang's background first. Lan Hongtai made a prompt decision after receiving Lan Borong's confirmation. No matter what the final result was, as long as there was a trace of possibility, he would not give up. Hearing Lan Hongtai's words, Lan Borong revealed a smile. Rest assured, family head. I will immediately arrange for people to investigate. However, our relationship with Wuji Palace has always been bad, so it won't be easy to obtain information. Don't worry, everything can be done slowly. Remember, you must find a trustworthy person to inquire about this information. You must not leak any information. Currently, many people in the family stood on Lan Jingquang's side. If Lan Jingquang's people knew about this, they would probably act immediately. He had already made such a mistake before. This time, he would not let the same mistake happen again. Yes. Lan Borong immediately replied. Family head, this time, Bailey Hongzhuang won first place in the Battle of Zhuolu, so 3 months later, she will come to our Lan family to enter the Divine Pond of Ice. At that time, you can also take a look. The smile in Lan Borong's eyes widened. He felt that perhaps this was the heaven's intention to help them. Coincidentally, this time, they took out the Divine Pond of Ice as a reward, and Bailey Hongzhuang won first place. He believed that after the family head saw Bailey Hongzhuang with his own eyes, he would believe in his judgment. Hearing this, Lan Hongtai's eyes brightened. This is really good news. No matter whether Bailey Hongzhuang was his granddaughter or not, as long as he could see that face that was very similar to Yun Zhao's, he would be extremely happy. After Lan Hongtai and Lan Borong discussed for a long time, Lan Borong finally left the room. After Lan Qinyan returned to her residence, her face was full of unhappiness. Especially when she saw that everyone wanted to ask her about her expression, she became even more annoyed. She just wanted to be alone and didn't want to talk about anything else. When Yumanlan saw Lan Qinyan enter the room without saying a word after returning, she was also puzzled. Usually, Lan Qinyan would be very happy on days like this. She had always been full of confidence in Lan Qinyan, so she didn't go to welcome her today. Because Lan Qinyan had long been accustomed to this kind of competition, her results would definitely not be bad. Just now, she didn't even see Lan Qinyan's figure clearly before the door was closed. Qinyan, what's wrong? Yumanlan asked with concern. Don't bother me, let me be alone for a while. Lan Qinyan threw out these words in annoyance and didn't say anything else. She didn't want to face all of this. Hearing this, Yumanlan couldn't help but be stunned. She wanted to say something, but she had no choice but to shut her mouth. Not long after, Lan Jingquang also returned. Before Yumanlan could speak, Lan Jingquang's cold and sullen voice sounded, "Where's Qinyan?" "Qinyan is in the room." Yumanlan replied, "Jingquang, do you know what happened to Qinyan?" Chapter 2502. Yumanlan's expression couldn't help but change. Although she had thought of this outcome, she still felt that it was impossible. They all understood the cultivators of the major powers. It was impossible for Qinyan to perform at such a low level. Lan Jingquang walked directly to Lan Qinyan's door and knocked. "Qinyan, come out." Lan Qinyan frowned when she heard the noise outside, but she was still lying on the bed, unwilling to get up. "Let me be alone for a while." Lan Jingquang's face turned colder. The Lan family has never had a top 10 in the battle of martial arts for so many years. You led the team and became 20th. You still have the face to be alone? The entire family is waiting for you to explain the situation, but you ran back yourself. You have no sense of responsibility. You still dare to brag about yourself. Now come out and go to the meeting hall. Lan Jingquang was furious when he heard the news. The entire family was talking about this. He could feel everyone's suspicious gaze. Most importantly, a loss was a loss, but Lan Qinyan did not even give any explanation and directly ran back. What was this? As the future head of the Lan family, how could she not have any sense of responsibility? Before he came back, the elders had already expressed their dissatisfaction with him. As the young master, He could make mistakes, but he definitely couldn't run away. Just this point alone was enough for Lan Qinyan to make a big mistake. When Yumanlan heard that Lan Qinyan had only obtained 20th place, she was completely dumbfounded. 20th. This was something that had never happened in the Lan family. How could Lan Qinyan's result be so bad this time? At this moment, Yumanlan finally understood why Lan Jingquang was so angry. This result couldn't be explained to the entire Lan family. Lan Qinyan was already frustrated. After hearing Lan Jingquang's reprimand, she was even more ashamed and angry. She didn't want to face this situation, but Lan Jingquang still forced her. I don't want to go out now. All of you leave. Lan Jingquang was even angrier when he heard Lan Qingyan's words. Do you still want to be the young master of the Lan family? What right do you have to talk about me? You can't even be the young master of the Lan family in this lifetime. Bang! After Lan Qinyan finished speaking, Lan Jingquang slammed the door open and pulled Lan Qinyan down from the bed. But before Lan Qinyan could react, Lan Jingquang had already ruthlessly slapped her face. Who allowed you to talk to me like that? Lan Qinyan was also stunned by this slap. She stared blankly at Lan Jingquang and her eyes flashed with anger. You hit me? Yumanlan was also shocked by Jingquang's actions. She immediately grabbed Jingquang's hand and said, Jingquang, what are you doing? I usually spoil you, don't be too ignorant. Lan Jing's voice was still fierce. Now that your hand has become like this, you still want the family to take out medicine to treat you. If you have such an attitude, could it be that you don't want your hand anymore? Only then did Yumanlan notice that Lan Qinyan was missing an arm. She was stupefied. What's going on? Qinyan, where's your arm? Only now did Yumanlan realize the seriousness of this matter. Chapter 2503. Gone. Yumanlan was in disbelief. Who did it? That person is too daring. As the young master of the Lan family, Lan Qingyan's position was unshakable. Even if the other party made a move, they wouldn't dare to be so ruthless and directly break her arm. It's all Bailey Hongzhuang's fault. Sooner or later, I'll pay her back in double. Once she thought of Bailey Hongzhuang, Lan Qingyan's expression became extremely gloomy. Her gaze became extremely malicious. She remembered the pain of losing her arm clearly, and the slap on her heart was unforgettable. Lan Jingquang looked at Lan Qingyan's appearance, but the gloominess in his eyes didn't dissipate. Since you still want to take revenge, you better get your act together now. If you continue to run away after making a mistake, you'll be the one losing. Hearing this, Lan Qingyan's expression didn't look good, but she knew that what Lan Jingquang said was true. She was afraid that after her return, the entire Lan family would be in an uproar. If she didn't show up, it would cause everyone to criticize her. She really couldn't continue to be so willful. Then what should I do now? Lan Qinyan looked helplessly at Lan Jingquang. Now that things had come to this, she was already in a mess and didn't know what to do. Go to the assembly hall. Lan Jingquang's face was cold, and his gaze towards Lan Qinyan was filled with anger. However, after seeing that Lan Qinyan had finally come to her senses, his expression eased a little. I'll go inform the elders. Lan Qinyan nodded. Once Lan Jingquang got angry, it was very scary. Even she didn't dare to talk back. You'd better correct your attitude. As the young master, you have to be responsible. Only then will the elders not be disappointed in you. Do you understand? Before leaving, Lan Jingquang fiercely threw down a sentence before turning to leave. After Lan Jingquang left, Yumanlan said with concern, Qinyan, your father's temper is like this. Don't take it to heart. This arm will definitely recover. Don't worry. I know. The displeasure on Lan Qingyan's face was still strong. I'll go to the conference hall first. Normally, Lan Jingquang only cared about status. Even when she was seriously injured, he didn't say a word of concern. She already understood. However, she did not care. When she became the head of the family, she wouldn't care about Lan Jingquang. Yumanlan originally wanted to say something, but Lan Qinyan simply did not have the mood to continue talking to her. She turned around and left. Only Yumanlan remained in the room, watching the two leave in the blink of an eye. She felt helpless. Lan Qingyan's personality was very similar to Lan Jingquang's. Regardless of whether she faced Lan Jingquang or Lan Qinyan, she could only feel helpless. When Lan Qinyan arrived at the assembly hall, Lan Jingquang had already informed all the elders to gather in the assembly hall. "I'm sorry, elders. I was in a bad mood earlier, so I left first. I'm really sorry." Lan Qinyan took the lead in apologizing and bowed to the elders. Only then did the elders' complexions become better. Previously, Lan Qinyan's disregard for everything really made everyone a little disappointed. If Lan Qinyan could only run away like this in the future, then their Lan family would not be able to see the future. In comparison, Lan Jingquang was much more suitable to be the head of the family. Chapter 2504. Young Lord, we have already understood your experience in the Battle of Zhuolu. This time, Bailey Hongzhuang is indeed a strong opponent. However, since things have already come to this, we hope that you will not lose your fighting spirit. Victory and defeat are common in war. The second elder slowly said. He was originally a member of Lan Jingquang's faction, so he had always supported Lan Qinyan. Now that he had taken the lead to say these words, the other elders would not say much about this matter. Thank you, elders, for your understanding. I was too impulsive before. I will definitely not do this again. Please rest assured. Listening to Lan Qinyan's words, all the elders nodded their heads. This was how a young lord should behave. Young lord, regarding this matter, what plans do you have for the future? Lan Borong asked. In fact, he had always hoped that Bailey Hongzhuang was really Lan Yixuan. Even though he had only met Bailey Hongzhuang once, from his understanding of the situation, Bailey Hongzhuang was definitely more suitable than Lan Qinyan to be the patriarch. In fact, Lan Hongtai had long wanted to not care about the matters of the clan. However, Lan Qinyan was still not mature enough. He could not rest assured that the Lan clan would be handed over to Lan Qinyan. Taking advantage of the previous effort, he had already sent out trustworthy people to inquire about Bailey Hongzhuang. He only hoped that the final result would not disappoint them. Hearing Lan Borong's words, Lan Qinyan could not help but look at Lan Jingquang. The first elder had always been an upright and plain-spoken person. He was different from the second elder, who was completely on their side. The first elder was the patriarch's man. If she did not answer these questions properly, it would not be long before the news reached the ears of the patriarch. This was not good news. Lan Jingquang gave Lan Qinyan a look. Only then did Lan Qinyan speak. I will work harder in my cultivation. The next time I see Bailey Hongzhuang, I will definitely not let such a thing happen again. First elder, now that things have come to this, the young master already knows where the problem lies. In my opinion, there's no need for us to be tangled up in this matter. The second elder looked at Lan Borong. This time, Lan Qinyan had indeed made a big mistake. However, he could not allow the first elder to harp on this issue. Lan Borong naturally knew what the second elder was thinking. When Lan Jingquang did those crazy things, the second elder was the first to stand up for Lan Jingquang. All these years, he and the second elder were at odds with each other on the surface. But now that Lan Yunxiao's family was no longer here, there was no need for a conflict between him and second elder. Indeed, our Lan clan is a clan that can accept failure. As long as we can snatch back our results in the next battle for deer chasing, that's good enough. In the next moment, Lan Jingquang couldn't help but glance at the second elder. The second elder immediately stood up. This time, the young master's poor performance in the battle for deer chasing was due to an unexpected situation. However, everyone has seen the young master's usual performance. Her strength is absolutely unquestionable. Moreover, this time, the young master was injured for the sake of the clan's ranking. We should quickly take out pills to help the young master recover. Long ago, Lan Jingquang had already communicated with the second elder. Now, the most important thing was to treat Lan Qingyan's injuries. Chapter 2505. That's right. In another 3 months, the divine ice snow pond will open. Young Lord must quickly recover from her injuries so that she can better absorb the energy of the divine ice snow pond. Regarding this, the elders did not have any objections. Even though this pill was extremely precious, the person who needed it was the young lord. Naturally, there was no problem. On this point, Lan Borong also agreed. Young lord, this time you encountered the primal chaos tablet in the Battle of Zhuolu. Did you gain anything? Lan Borong's eyes were wise and calm. This was something that the family head was extremely concerned about. If the Rainbow God Pearl could improve through the power of the primal chaos tablet, then it would be a joyous matter. Even if the results of the Battle of Zhuolu were not good, as long as they gained something, it would be enough. Following Lan Borong's words, the other elders' gazes all landed on Lan Qingyan. This news was something that they were also very concerned about. The connection between the Rainbow God Pearl and the Primal Chaos Tablet was something that had been passed down in the family. It was just that this Primal Chaos Tablet was in the Battle of Zhuolu and would not appear every time. This time, they were all looking forward to Lan Qingyan's Rainbow God Pearl being improved because of this Primal Chaos Tablet. Lan Jingquang's expression also changed a little. For so many years, Lan Qingyan had been using the power of the Rainbow God Pearl very well. The thing that they were worried about did not happen. It was as if this was also arranged by the heavens. Lan Qingyan's body did not reject it at all. It was as if it was naturally in her body. He believed that this time would not be an exception. After hearing the questions of the elders, Lan Qingyan was also shocked. She did not tell anyone about this. Why did the elders seem like they already knew about it? I discovered that this Primal Chaos Tablet is very close to the Rainbow God Pearl. Because of this, I was able to comprehend it. Lan Qingyan smiled faintly. Hearing Lan Qingyan's words, the elders were first happy, but then they were puzzled. Young lord, what did you comprehend? I've comprehended the Primal Chaos Tablet's contents, and improved by 2 steps. However, that Di Baichen and Mo Yunjue's talents are truly perverted. I'm slightly lacking compared to them. Lan Qingyan was not willing to mention Bailey Hongzhuang at all. From her point of view, Bailey Hongzhuang was absolutely lucky. Otherwise, how could she have such results? Is there no change to the Rainbow Divine Pearl? Lan Jingquang frowned. According to their understanding, the owner of the Rainbow Sacred Pearl could enter the Source World and increase the power of the Rainbow Sacred Pearl by a level. But according to Lan Qingyan's answer, it seemed that such a thing did not happen? Lan Qingyan looked at the second elder in confusion. She did not understand what the second elder meant. It was just comprehending the Primal Chaos Tablet. What did it have to do with the Rainbow God Bead? The two were completely different things. Even if the Rainbow Divine Pearl helped her speed up her comprehension, it was impossible to change the Rainbow Divine Pearl. Thinking of this, Lan Qingyan couldn't help but shake her head. No. Hearing Lan Qingyan's words, the originally expectant crowd couldn't help but reveal a disappointed expression. Previously, they were incomparably anticipating that there would be a change. Then, their Lan family would definitely rise to another level under Lan Qingyan's leadership. They did not expect that there would be no movement at all. Chapter 2506. Logically speaking, the information passed down by the ancestors should not be wrong. Why did it not have any effect? Some of the elders could not help but suspect that Lan Qingyan's Rainbow Sacred Pearl did not truly belong to her. Perhaps in the past, they did not feel that there was any problem after Lan Qingyan absorbed the Rainbow Sacred Pearl. It was as if she was the true successor of the Rainbow Sacred Pearl. However, the truth was that the Rainbow Sacred Pearl had changed. It was likely that the rainbow sacred pearl would no longer be able to improve after being taken away. It was just that they did not voice this guess out loud. After all, at this point, Lan Yixuan no longer existed. There was no point in mentioning this matter anymore. Lan Jingquang and the second elder's expression also changed. This was not a situation they wanted to see. They also had the same guess in their minds, but they were unwilling to believe it. Lan Qinyan had obtained the rainbow sacred pearl for so many years, and there had never been any problems. Instead, she was like the previous owners of the rainbow sacred pearl in the Lan family. Her cultivation speed was very fast and her battle strength was much stronger than cultivators of the same level. Chapter 2507. However, in the current situation, if they were to mention this matter, it would definitely cause a lot of opposition. Moreover, Lan Qingyan's previous evasion had already caused a lot of elders to be dissatisfied. Lan Qingyan's performance over the years was not bad, so everyone was quite supportive. However, many of the elders had the Lan family's interests as their starting point and did not blindly support Lan Qingyan. Now that Lan Qingyan's performance was obviously not mature enough, their plan had to be pushed back. Lan Jingquang nodded. This matter was really not handled properly by Qingyan. Now is indeed not a good time to mention this matter. It's better to wait for the impact of this matter to subside before mentioning it. It's good that Master Kuang understands. Mentioning it at this time will definitely cause a lot of criticism. It's better to wait until the young lord breaks through to the Purple Realm. Second elder sighed. This time, Lan Qingyan's performance was really too disappointing. Even though he had always supported Lan Jingquang and Lan Qingyan, after seeing such a result, he could only sigh. It was really too shameful. Now that this news had just spread, the impact would be even greater after a few days. Because not only was Lan Qingyan forced to kowtow and apologize in the Battle of Zhuolu, she even offended a few big forces. After the other forces knew about this matter, they would definitely think carefully. In short, this trouble was really not small. As the young lord, it was extremely unwise to cause a conflict to this extent. Most importantly, now all the elders already knew the reason. From the beginning to the end, it was Lan Qingyan who stirred up trouble first. However, in the end, she went for wool and came back shorn. Not only did this not cause the slightest bit of sympathy or anger, on the contrary, they only felt that Lan Qingyan was too stupid. As the young lord, she should know that before she had enough strength to defeat the opponent, she could only endure silently. However, Lan Qingyan just had to do something that she should not have done. It was really helpless. The second elder left after saying those words. He was really disappointed. Lan Jingquang looked at second elder's back as he left. The deep look in his eyes became even more intense. Lan Qingyan's performance this time was really disappointing. Even he did not expect it. This was simply the most shameful thing that Lan Qingyan had done since becoming the young lord. There was another point that the second elder did not mention. That was, Lan Qingyan had actually destroyed the relationship between them and the Ouyang clan. The disciples of the family did not hide anything about what had happened, so everyone knew about it clearly. Come to think of it, the Ouyang clan must have already known the whole story. If they wanted to mend their relationship, they would have to pay a certain price. It was really troublesome. The Lan family's performance this time had already caused many forces to have a clearer view of them. In addition, they had made a few opponents. If they lost an ally at this time, it would be incomparably embarrassing. After Lan Qingyan returned to the house, she kept waiting for Lan Jingquang to return. She really didn't understand what the elders' expressions meant. Qingyan, what did the elders say after you went to the assembly hall? Yumanlan looked at Lan Qingyan with concern and asked. Lan Qingyan frowned. After I apologize, what else can they say? However, mother, do you know what is the relationship between the Rainbow God Pearl and the Primal Chaos Tablet? I don't know. Chapter 2508. Seeing Yumanlan's clueless appearance, Lan Qinyan felt even more vexed. As Lan Jingquang's wife, Yu Manlan didn't have the slightest understanding of Lan Jingquang's thoughts. It had been like this for so many years. She was truly speechless. As a woman, she didn't have any tricks up her sleeves. She was simply too incompetent. Qinyan, tell mother the exact situation. Yu Manlan couldn't hide the anxiety and concern in her eyes. Ever since Lan Qinyan and Lan Jingquang left, she was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. Yet, she didn't know what had happened. Now that Lan Qinyan was back, she naturally wanted to know what had happened. Lan Qinyan impatiently waved her hand. Don't bother me. What's the use of telling you? Anyway, no matter what she said to her mother, it wouldn't be of any use. It was just a waste of time. After so many years, she had long since gotten used to it, and the little bit of patience she had left had long since been exhausted. Seeing Lan Qingyan's annoyed and impatient appearance, Yu Manlan felt a wave of sadness in her heart. She didn't know when it started, but Lan Qinyan had always treated her like this. It was as if she was an insignificant existence in this family. No one took her seriously. Outsiders might think that she was very impressive, but the Lan family members knew that she didn't have any status at all. This was something she had slowly come to realize over the years. It was because of this that she was even more jealous of Mu Lingbing. Even though Mu Lingbing had been tortured beyond recognition in the dungeon, Lan Yunxiao had always treated her the same way. That kind of doting and heartache couldn't be faked. With just a glance and a sentence, this kind of affection had been displayed incisively and vividly. Back then, she had put in so much effort to do all this for Lan Jingquang and Lan Qinyan. However, in the end, she had become an existence that was despised by them. She really could not understand why this was so. So, all these years, she had tried her best to show off in front of Mu Lingbing, wanting to show off her outstanding qualities. Unfortunately, only she knew the weakness and envy in her heart. Perhaps she would rather suffer as long as the man by her side could always dote on her. God was just so unfair. She had done everything she could, but she still couldn't get what she wanted. Lan Qinyan was too lazy to pay attention to Yu Manlan. She turned around and walked into the house. Only when Lan Jingquang returned would she get the answer she wanted. Not long after, Lan Jingquang returned. Yu Manlan was just about to ask when she saw Lan Jingquang's extremely gloomy face. She didn't dare to say anything else. Every time Lan Jingquang showed this kind of expression, she knew that something bad was going to happen. If she angered Lan Jingquang at this time, it would not end well. Lan Jingquang didn't even look at Yu Manlan and immediately walked into Lan Qingyan's room. The door to the room had already been smashed into smithereens. When Lan Jingquang walked in, he saw Lan Qinyan calmly drinking tea. He looked as if everything had already passed. He was so carefree that he didn't know how serious his mistake was. Chapter 2509. Looking at Lan Qingyan's nonchalant attitude, the anger in Lan Jingquang's heart intensified. He reached out and slapped Lan Qingyan's face. Slap. This slap was louder than the previous one. Lan Qingyan's face swelled up in a short period of time. Seeing this, Lan Qingyan looked at Lan Jingquang in a daze. She didn't understand why Lan Jingquang hit her. Wasn't everything already settled? All the elders didn't say anything. Why did Lan Jingquang still hit her? Without waiting for Lan Qinyan to ask, Lan Jingquang's roar had already rung out. Do you know how big of a mistake you've made? You've always been proud of yourself and thought that you're amazing. The Lan family has never had such a bad result in the battle for supremacy. Not only did you not gain anything, you even offended several forces. You even strained your relationship with the Ouyang family. You've caused so much damage to the family. If you don't have the ability, then stay put. You went to find trouble with others. In the end, not only did you lose your own face, but you also lost the entire family's face. Lan Qinyan was stunned by Lan Jingquang's roar. She couldn't regain her senses for a moment. Her face was burning and her brain was buzzing. After hearing Lan Jingquang's words, Yu Manlin's face turned ugly. She didn't expect things to be this bad. Didn't we already know? The elders didn't say anything. Lan Qinyan couldn't help but feel guilty when she spoke. She understood that this matter was indeed terrible. However, for the Lan family, this wasn't a mistake that they couldn't bear. Didn't say anything? Seeing that Lan Qinyan was still unrepentant, Lan Jingquang's anger came out of nowhere. Originally, I wanted to use this opportunity to make you the true clan head. Now, everything has been ruined by you. Even the elders who were originally drawn over to support you now have some opinions. The second elder is also disappointed in you. Do you know how much I've done to stabilize this all these years? It's all because of your stupidity. Now, everything has to be rearranged. Do you really think that you're amazing just because you have the rainbow pearl? That was snatched. It's not something you can have. Don't the others know about this? Do you really think you're an unparalleled genius? Lan Jingquang's words were like a sharp knife piercing Lan Qinyan's heart. Lan Qinyan was completely dumbfounded. Even though Lan Jingquang had beaten her and scolded her before, he had never spoken to her in such a serious manner. She had always felt that she was the destined successor of the Lan family, and everyone else's light was overshadowed by her. However, after hearing Lan Jingquang's words, she finally understood that everything was under Lan Jingquang's control. She hadn't realized this until now. Yu Manlan covered her mouth to prevent herself from crying out in surprise. She hadn't seen Lan Jingquang so furious in a long time. This time, Lan Qinyan really crossed Lan Jingquang's bottom line. Lan Qinyan looked at the raging Lan Jingquang and didn't dare to say another word. She was afraid that Lan Jingquang would slap her again. Chapter 25:10. All these years, Lan Qinyan knew that Lan Jingquang had suppressed the other outstanding children in the family to help her stabilize her position. However, she believed that it was because of her own strength that all the elders supported her. After all, she was the owner of the Rainbow Pearl. Everyone who had the Rainbow Pearl had a pivotal position in the Lan family. Because of this, she never took it to heart. Moreover, her usual performance in the family was indeed good, so Lan Jingquang never told her about it. Until now, when she heard Lan Jingquang's angry rebuke, she finally understood that she had been thinking too highly of herself all these years. The atmosphere instantly froze. Lan Qingyan's gaze towards Lan Jingquang was filled with fear. Once Lan Jingquang got angry, he was extremely terrifying. Even though Lan Qinyan was usually arrogant, she didn't dare to be impudent in front of Lan Jingquang. Just from Lan Jingquang's actions towards Lan Yunxiao, she could tell that he wasn't a kind person. On the contrary, he was very frightening. Yu Manlan also stood outside the room, not daring to move. All these years, her position had been precarious. She clearly knew that Lan Jingquang didn't have her in his heart. Back then, Lan Jingquang treated her well simply because he wanted to marry her and gain the backing of the Yu family. After this backing was secured, Lan Jingquang didn't care about her anymore. This was also the biggest pain in Yu Manlin's life. In the past, she was too stupid and thought that Lan Jingquang truly liked her. She even thought that no one was happier than her. But in the end, she was just a chess piece. Now that Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing were dead, she was no longer useful as a chess piece. If she wasn't careful, she could be abandoned at any time. This was something she couldn't accept. Lan Jingquang looked at Lan Qinyan coldly. You better perform well during this period of time. Don't make any more mistakes. You have to go and apologize to the Ouyang clan. Not everyone will help you clean up the mess you created. His cold words didn't contain the slightest bit of emotion, only endless coldness and command. Lan Jingquang's deep, dark eyes were engulfed in a terrifying storm. In the past, Lan Qinyan wasn't as reckless as she was now, so he didn't say too much. But now, Lan Qinyan felt too good about herself. It was as if everything was already hers and she couldn't run away. However, he knew very well that because of Lan Qingyan's character, many elders were slightly worried. Strength was one of the reasons to become the patriarch. But as the patriarch weighed the pros and cons, character was equally important. With Lan Qingyan's personality, Lan Jingquang, Lan Jingquang, Lan Jingquang, 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 Jingquang. Lan Hongtai, that old man, was obviously determined not to hand over the patriarch's position to him, but he didn't care. As long as Lan Qingyan became the patriarch, what was the difference between him and the patriarch? He just couldn't understand how he couldn't compare to Lan Yunxiao, but Lan Hongtai only had Lan Yunxiao in his heart. Chapter 25:11. He hated it. At that time, he was also high-spirited, and the things he did were also praised by the family. However, that old man Lan Hongtai only saw Lan Yunxiao's achievements and didn't see his hard work. He was the eldest son. What's more, Lan Hongtai had already announced Lan Yunxiao as the next family head so early and didn't even consider him. What was laughable was that Lan Hongtai actually hoped that he could help Lan Yunxiao and become his right-hand man. Why? He was the one who should be the next family head. Lan Yunxiao was just a stumbling block. That damned old man couldn't forget Lan Yunxiao even after so many years. He was simply too hateful. What part of him couldn't compare to that dead person? Strength? He was stronger. Wife status? The Yu family was still the Lan family's ally. Most importantly, the rainbow pearl had also successfully merged into Lan Qingyan's body. In his opinion, this was clearly arranged by the heavens. If the heavens didn't feel that it was unfair for him, how could they arrange everything so cleverly? Fusing with the seven-colored divine pearl was not a simple matter. Unfortunately, Lan Qingyan had succeeded in fusing with it, which determined the outcome. Lan Qingyan looked at the terrifying Lan Jingquang in front of her and could only nod slightly, afraid that she had done something wrong to provoke Lan Jingquang's fury. After Lan Jingquang vented his anger, his mood calmed down a bit. Things had already reached this stage, so there was no point in being angry. He had to think of a way to make up for all of this. He still needed to visit the various elders before he could settle all of these matters. Fortunately, although Lan Qingyan's actions were overboard, it didn't arouse everyone's opposition. After Lan Qingyan saw that Lan Jingquang wasn't so angry, she was relieved. "Father, what is the relationship between the Primal Chaos Tablet and the Rainbow Pearl?" After thinking for a moment, Lan Qingyan still mustered up her courage to ask. She really wanted to know why the elders were so disappointed when they found out that her Rainbow Pearl didn't change. However, other than Lan Jingquang, no one else could give her an answer. Lan Jingquang coldly glanced at Lan Qingyan. Lan Qingyan only thought that she had asked a question that she shouldn't have asked. Her heart was filled with apprehension when Lan Jingquang's reply rang out. According to the news passed down by the ancestors, if the owner of the Rainbow God Pearl is able to enter the origin world of the Primal Chaos Tablet, then the Rainbow God Pearl's power will increase. Therefore, all the elders have high hopes for your participation in the Battle of Zhuolu. They especially hope that the seven-colored God Pearl can change. If that was the case, then no one would be able to shake your position. Unfortunately, you didn't. Hearing this, Lan Qingyan finally understood, but her feelings were somewhat complicated. I only felt that the Primal Chaos Tablet was somewhat close to the Rainbow God Pearl, but I didn't discover the source world at all. Lan Qingyan frowned. Why is that? Could it be that the information passed down by our ancestors is inaccurate? Lan Jingquang looked at Lan Qingyan's self-righteous appearance and glanced at her, saying, "If I'm not wrong, it should be because you're not the chosen successor of the Rainbow God Pearl, so you can't enter the Primal Chaos Tablet's origin world." Chapter 25:12. However, Lan Jingquang's answer was like a sharp knife stabbing into Lan Qingyan's heart, causing her to bleed profusely. She never thought that it would be such an answer. All these years, she had been fusing well with the Rainbow Pearl, and there had been no problems. Most of the time, she felt that she was the one chosen by the Rainbow Pearl. Only when people mentioned her dead sister would she feel a trace of jealousy, even if it was a dead person. Because the Rainbow Pearl chose Lan Yixuan and not her, Lan Qinyan. This was an unjustified feeling. Even if the Rainbow Pearl was already hers, it was still an extremely unpleasant feeling. She didn't understand why the Rainbow Pearl chose Lan Yixuan and not her. She was still outstanding enough. Could it be that she couldn't compare to Lan Yixuan? In this short period of time, Lan Qingyan's mind was filled with thousands of thoughts. Countless thoughts flashed through her mind. In the end, there was only one thought left: anger. Since Lan Jingquang thought of the answer to this question, the other elders must have also understood the problem. In this way, didn't this mean that everyone would think that she, Lan Qinyan, was unjustified as the successor of the Rainbow Pearl? For a moment, an indescribable feeling of humiliation spread in her heart. This feeling made her feel like she was about to collapse, but she was powerless to refute. Because it really wasn't hers to begin with. After Lan Jingquang looked at Lan Qingyan's defeated expression, he didn't say anything. Instead, he turned around and left. He felt that compared to Lan Qingyan's self-righteousness in the past, it was a good choice to recognize her own worth earlier. Otherwise, if things continued to develop like this, Lan Qinyan would really have no hope. Lan Qinyan was immersed in her own thoughts and didn't even notice Lan Jingquang's departure. All along, she had been living with pride. Since young, no one could overshadow her brilliance. She had long been used to it. However, Lan Jingquang's words today were too big of a blow to her, so she couldn't recover for a while. Yumanlan saw that Lan Qinyan was in a daze by herself and couldn't help but walk over. She said with concern, "Qinyan, your father said this because he was too angry. Don't take it to heart." Only then did Lan Qinyan regain her senses, but her expression was extremely ugly. Don't keep it in mind? How could they not remember it? Now all the elders must be thinking that I am a fake, that I am not legitimate. That is why I am unable to get the Primal Chaos Tablet's recognition. Lan Yixuan had already been dead for so many years, but grandfather still remembered her. This is all because of you and father's incompetence, but now you're putting all the pressure on me. Lan Qinyan felt a burst of anger. Just thinking about all this, she felt that she would not be able to go out and meet people for a while. After saying all this, Lan Qinyan covered herself with the quilt, unwilling to say anything else. Yumanlan looked at Lan Qingyan's appearance and felt helpless. Indeed, she was useless. If she was useful, she wouldn't be living like this for the rest of her life. Unfortunately, he had already walked down this path, and there was no way to change it. Chapter 25:13. Lan Qinyan buried her head in the quilt, wanting to forget everything. Unfortunately, she couldn't do it. She couldn't help but hate Bailey Hongzhuang even more. If it wasn't for Bailey Hongzhuang affecting her performance in the Battle of Zhuolu, she wouldn't have fallen into such a passive situation after returning to the clan. These two slaps were all because of Bailey Hongzhuang. If it wasn't for Bailey Hongzhuang's sabotage, she would have been able to successfully sit on the Lan clan's clan head seat. In this way, no one would be able to shake her position. Why would she need to apologize to the various elders? On the contrary, it should be that group of old fellows who would listen to her orders. The resentment in Lan Qingyan's eyes gradually deepened. Since everything was ruined now, she would definitely take revenge on Bailey Hongzhuang after 3 months. She wanted Bailey Hongzhuang to die. What limitless palaces, young palace lord! Bailey Hongzhuang caused her to fail to sit on the clan head seat. Then she would make sure that Bailey Hongzhuang also had no chance to sit on the limitless palace's palace lord seat. Relying on Di Baichen's favor, she became undisciplined and out of control. As long as Bailey Hongzhuang died, she wouldn't be able to obtain anything. Lan Qingyan's mind was constantly thinking about how to make Bailey Hongzhuang suffer a painful death in order to vent her anger. She had to ask her grandaunt for some extremely cruel poisons. Once her grandaunt's poison was activated, she knew very well how terrifying it was. This was because many of the people she disliked had died in her hands like this. This time, she had to ask her grandaunt for the most vicious poison. Only then could she truly vent her anger. Just as Lan Qinyan was thinking about this, Lan Qinyan suddenly felt a faint pain coming from her body. After realizing this, Lan Qinyan couldn't help but frown. Why was her body suddenly in pain? She was only injured on her arm. However, gradually, the pain became more and more intense. Lan Qinyan didn't dare to ignore it and immediately shouted for Yumanlan, who was outside the room. "Mother!" After hearing Lan Qinyan's call, Yumanlan walked into the room. She originally thought that Lan Qinyan wanted her to help with something again. She didn't expect to see Lan Qinyan lying on the bed with a painful expression. Seeing this, Yumanlan also became anxious. "Qinyan, what's wrong with you?" "I don't know." Lan Qinyan clenched her teeth and cried out in pain, "My body hurts so much. Quickly help me call a doctor and an alchemist." Hearing this, Yumanlan quickly nodded. "I'll go right away. I'll be back soon." Yumanlan didn't dare to delay and immediately ran out. Lan Qinyan's complexion had already turned deathly pale. She felt that every cell in her body was transmitting the feeling of pain. The heart-wrenching pain was everywhere. She had never felt such unbearable pain before. Even when her arm was broken, there was only a sharp pain, and this pain would gradually lessen. However, the pain that came from her body was like countless insects drilling into her body. It was so painful that she couldn't hide it. It was as if her body was riddled with holes. Following this pain, she found that her broken arm that was originally no longer in pain began to hurt again. Not only that, the wound on her broken arm that had already healed began to bleed again. Chapter 25:14. Under such a situation where she felt like she was being bitten by hundreds of insects, Lan Qinyan couldn't help but think of the pill that Bailey Hongzhuang had fed her. Ever since she had consumed it, she had not felt any discomfort, so she had gradually ignored it. She thought that it was the pill that Bailey Hongzhuang had fed her in order to scare her and threaten her. After all, when Bailey Hongzhuang had drugged her, the strength of their two teams were equally matched. Logically speaking, if Bailey Hongzhuang had fed her poison, then Bailey Hongzhuang should have threatened her. However, Bailey Hongzhuang had never mentioned this matter, as if this pill had no effect at all. She also thought that Bailey Hongzhuang didn't need to threaten her anymore after she had the backing of Tiangang Sect and Shitian Pavilion. However, she couldn't think of any other reason for the sudden burst of pain in her body other than that pill. Damn Bailey Hongzhuang! Lan Qinyan gritted her teeth, hating that she couldn't transfer all this pain to Bailey Hongzhuang. She didn't expect that Bailey Hongzhuang, who had a sanctimonious appearance, would actually poison her. The next time she saw Bailey Hongzhuang, she would definitely give her a taste of her own medicine. The poison that her grandaunt had concocted was the best in the entire Xingxian continent. Bailey Hongzhuang's poison couldn't be compared to it. Although she was in great pain at the moment, Lan Qinyan wasn't too worried. The Yu clan was a famous medical family in the entire Xingxian continent. Wasn't Bailey Hongzhuang showing off her slight skill in front of an expert by poisoning her? It wouldn't take long for her poison to be cured, and Bailey Hongzhuang wouldn't get what she wanted. Yumanlan quickly found a doctor and an alchemist. At the same time, this matter had alarmed the entire Lan clan. Lan Qinyan had just returned to the clan today. The previous disturbance hadn't passed yet, but now another matter had happened. It was very suspicious. Quickly take a look, what's wrong with Qinyan? Yumanlan's face was filled with anxiety. She had never seen Lan Qinyan reveal such a painful expression. When the Lan clan's doctor and alchemist came in and saw Lan Qinyan's pale face and bleeding wounds, they were shocked. Originally, on the way here, many people were still guessing that Lan Qinyan had caused such a ruckus in order to get the clan to treat her arm as soon as possible. But now, after seeing Lan Qinyan's condition clearly, they understood that it was not an act. Lan Qinyan struggled to turn her body. Under this kind of pain, her strength had been completely exhausted in a short period of time. The doctor quickly took Lan Qingyan's pulse, but after taking her pulse, the doctor couldn't help but frown. Lan Qingyan's her pulse was calm, as if there was no problem. However, Lan Qingyan was in so much pain right now. What was this situation? Quickly help me stop the pain. I can't take this anymore, she shouted. This kind of pain could make a person collapse. She only wanted to calm this pain quickly. Hearing this, the doctor quickly nodded and immediately used a method to help Lan Qingyan reduce her pain. However, the doctor's method was useless because Lan Qingyan still looked like she was in incomparable pain. Chapter 25:15. The doctor was startled by Lan Qingyan's sudden roar. His complexion became extremely unsightly. Young master, I've already used my medical skills to reduce your pain. Is there any effect? Lan Qingyan frowned and rebuked angrily. If there is an effect, why am I in so much pain? This doctor was simply a good-for-nothing. Seeing this, the doctor's eyes flashed with doubt. Logically speaking, Lan Qingyan shouldn't be in so much pain anymore. The doctor couldn't help but look at the pharmacist beside him and asked, "Do you have any good ideas?" The pharmacist shook his head. Pharmacists weren't doctors. They could only refine pills and couldn't treat illnesses. Moreover, most of the pills refined by pharmacists were beneficial to cultivation. At the same time, they could also refine some pills to treat injuries. However, this had nothing to do with relieving pain. There had never been a pill that could relieve pain. Yumanlan saw that the doctor and pharmacist were looking at each other but couldn't think of a solution. Lan Qingyan was in extreme pain. Her face instantly turned gloomy. Young master is in so much pain. Can't you find the reason? You've studied medicine for so long, yet you can't even determine this point? The Lan clan's doctors had outstanding medical skills. Some of them even went directly to the Yu clan to study medicine. After all, the Lan clan and the Yu clan were in-laws. Therefore, it was very convenient for them to help each other. Being reprimanded by Yumanlan, the doctor lowered his head in shame. "Madam, I've checked the young master's pulse. It's peaceful and there's no problem at all. Therefore, I don't understand why the young master is in so much pain." The doctor thought that his medical skills weren't bad. However, he couldn't tell what the problem was. How could he treat it? Hearing the doctor's words, Yumanlan couldn't help but be startled. Peaceful pulse? How can the young master's pulse be peaceful in this state? The doctor's face was bitter. He knew that no one would believe his words. However, the pulse was indeed peaceful. He had studied medicine for so long. He couldn't be wrong about this point, right? Trash! Yumanlan slapped the doctor's face. She couldn't understand the use of sending this trash to the Yu clan to study medicine. After being slapped, although the doctor was very angry, who asked Yumanlan to have a noble status. Thus, even if he felt vexed, he could only endure it. Yumanlan gazed at the alchemist before her and said, "Go get all the doctors in the clan. If they can't cure the young master, then all of you don't have to live anymore." Hearing Yumanlan's words, the pharmacist didn't dare delay. She quickly ran out of the room. To him, every time he came to the place where the young master's family lived, it was a kind of torture. After ordering the pharmacist around, Yumanlan looked at the doctor who was still in a daze. She couldn't help but say angrily, "Why are you still in a daze? You want to rule by law." Hearing this, the doctor came back to his senses and went to Lan Qingyan's side. "Young master, what did you experience before this?" Since he couldn't diagnose it directly, he could only ask for the specific reason. Even though Lan Qingyan's heart was furious to the extreme, under this kind of pain, she simply did not have the strength to do anything. She could only report the situation to the doctor. Chapter 25:16. After receiving Lan Qingyan's answer, the doctor was also shocked. If it was poison, then such a situation was not impossible. When he was studying medicine in the Yu clan, He had learned that some extremely powerful poisons could cause people to be unable to detect the cause. At least, Yu Siqing was able to concoct such a poison. Therefore, he had always been full of reverence for Yu Siqing. Yu Siqing's attainments in poison were simply unparalleled. In their hearts, Yu Siqing was simply a godlike existence. However, according to his understanding of the situation, there were not many poison masters in the entire Shringxian continent who could concoct such a level of poison. Although he had always believed in his own medical skills, he also knew his own limit. Encountering such a level of poison, he had no way to neutralize it. The doctor took Lan Qingyan's pulse again. After confirming that there was no sign of poisoning, he became more certain of his conjecture. After thinking for a moment, the doctor still told Yu Manlan his conjecture. After hearing this answer, Yu Manlan's heart was also shocked. As a member of the Yu clan, she naturally had a certain understanding of such a situation. However, she had never had much interest in medicine. Therefore, all these years, she only knew a little about it, but was not proficient in it. If this was really the case, then the person who poisoned Lan Qingyan was not simple. Qingyan, tell mother, who poisoned you? Yu Manlan's eyes were gloomy. The other party actually poisoned Lan Qingyan so viciously. It was truly abominable. Until now, she still did not know what Lan Qingyan encountered in the Battle of Zhuolu. Now, it seemed that she really experienced a lot of danger in the Battle of Zhuolu. Lan Qingyan naturally heard the doctor's answer. Her hatred for Bailey Hongzhuang immediately deepened. She did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang to poison her so horribly. She really underestimated Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang. Lan Qingyan gritted her teeth and said Bailey Hongzhuang's name. It's all because of that bitch. I will definitely take her life. However, after saying this, Lan Qingyan's entire body was about to collapse. It was really too painful. Bailey Hongzhuang? Yu Manlan silently repeated this name. Ever since Lan Qingyan returned, she had already heard this name several times. The other party caused Qingyan to lose her position as the patriarch and broke Qingyan's arm. Who would have thought that he would actually dare to poison Qingyan? Did the other party not know that the Yu clan was also Qingyan's backer? This was simply a provocation. At this moment, Yu Manlan bore a grudge against Bailey Hongzhuang. Not to mention that Lan Qingyan would not let Bailey Hongzhuang off, she would not let her off either. After the pharmacist called all the doctors over, the news of Lan Qingyan's accident spread throughout the Lan family. The cultivators who were participating together with Lan Qingyan quickly guessed the reason behind this. They couldn't help but lament in their hearts. The young lord had really made an unwise decision in the battle for deer chasing this time. If it wasn't for that, they wouldn't have fallen to such a state. Lan Jingquang and the others couldn't help but frown when they found out about this matter. This was truly a case of one trouble after another. Chapter 25:17. After the diagnosis of all the doctors in the Lan clan, everyone helplessly concluded that there was no problem with Lan Qingyan's pulse. Therefore, they all affirmed the first doctor's judgment. Because, other than this reason, they couldn't think of any other reason. They had no problem treating ordinary illnesses, and they could also detoxify ordinary poisons. However, for a poison of this level, it wasn't something they could easily detoxify. Even in the entire Shringxian continent, there were only a few people who could detoxify it. Therefore, after everyone's discussion, there was only one way left, and that was to send Lan Qingyan to the Yu clan. Other than this, there was no other way. After Lan Qingyan knew that Bailey Hongzhuang had poisoned her with such a powerful poison, her feelings were extremely complicated. She really didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to have such a level of poison. She really underestimated Bailey Hongzhuang. Although she was extremely angry, Lan Qingyan's life was hanging by a thread under the torment of such pain. This kind of torture was simply unbearable. Lan Jingquang, the second elder, and the others rushed over after knowing that Lan Qingyan's situation was so serious. Lan Qingyan's arm was bleeding non-stop, and her face was extremely pale. Cold sweat covered her forehead. Jingquang, we can only send Qinyan to the Yu clan now. If this continues, Qinyan definitely won't be able to take it. After seeing Lan Jingquang, Yu Manlan felt as if she had seen her pillar of support. She immediately told him the suggestions of the doctors. Lan Jingquang looked at Lan Qingyan's painful appearance and couldn't help but frown. He said, Qingyan's injuries are very serious now. If the journey is bumpy, I'm afraid it will be even more unfavorable. Why don't we invite your aunt over? But if we inform my aunt and wait for her to come over, it will take a lot of time. Looking at Qingyan's condition, I don't know if she can hold on for that long. Yu Manlan's face was full of worry. If possible, it would be best to invite Yu Siqing. However, with the current situation, it was really too late. She was also very helpless in her heart. When the Yu clan was in trouble, she and Qinyan were the first to return. Just this point alone had already caused the Yu clan to have a lot of complaint. Could be felt just by looking at the communication between them these days. If she sent someone to invite her aunt at this time, her aunt might not be willing to come. She knew Yu Siqing's character very well. Even if it was the Yu clan's clan master, Yu Siqing would not give him face, let alone her. If she directly sent Lan Qinyan over and brought some greeting gifts, she believed that Yu Siqing would be willing to help. Hearing Yu Siqing's words, Lan Jingquang thought for a moment and felt that Yu Siqing's words made sense. Anyone could tell that Lan Qingyan's current state was too weak. If this dragged on, no one knew if she could hold on. Since that's the case, let's not delay any longer. Immediately send someone to prepare the carriage and set off. Lan Jingquang immediately gave the order. Lan Borong and Lan Hongtai also came to visit Lan Qinyan after they heard the news. As the young master of the Lan clan, nothing must happen to Lan Qinyan. Chapter 25:18. Along with the news of Bailey Hongzhuang leading Limitless Palace's team to obtain first place in the team and individual competition, Bailey Hongzhuang's reputation in Limitless Palace rose rapidly. Initially, the disciples who were suspicious of Bailey Hongzhuang, the sudden appearance of the young palace master, no longer had any doubts after knowing the results. On the contrary, everyone was more and more supportive of Bailey Hongzhuang. They had never seen Bailey Hongzhuang before and never knew that Limitless Palace had such a young palace master. That was why they had doubts in their hearts. And when they found out about Bailey Hongzhuang's battle results from Pei Yifan and the others, all the disciples' worship for Bailey Hongzhuang was like a torrential river. Some of the cultivators who didn't have the opportunity to participate in the Battle of Zhuolu were even more vexed. Just thinking about it, they knew how great it was to participate in the Battle of Zhuolu. It was simply limitless glory. The young lord of the Lan family was actually taught a lesson by the young palace master. She had helped everyone in Limitless Palace to vent their anger. It was a pity that they didn't have the chance to experience it personally. But now that they knew about it, they felt incomparably refreshed. Not only were the disciples full of admiration for Bailey Hongzhuang, even the elders of Limitless Palace were glowing with radiance. They were full of praises for Bailey Hongzhuang. All these years, they had been bullied by the elders of other forces. Now, they could finally hold their heads high. The next time they went out, they wanted to see which force's elder still dared to look down on them. At this moment, even if the elders of the Lan family were to stand in front of them, they wouldn't have any confidence. Bailey Hongzhuang naturally felt the changes in Limitless Palace. Thinking back to before she participated in the Battle of Zhuolu, she was met with suspicious gazes. Now, no matter where she went, the disciples of Limitless Palace would politely address her as young palace master. The change in treatment wasn't small at all. Since Bailey Hongzhuang came out of the assessment, she had been criticized and doubted by everyone all the way until now. Speaking of which, the feeling of being supported like this was really good. Bailey Hongzhuang liked this feeling very much. After all, she had relied on her own strength and performance in exchange for this. No one liked to be questioned and ridiculed. Although Bailey Hongzhuang didn't care much about these things, she felt particularly peaceful when these voices disappeared. Bailey Hongzhuang was no longer in a hurry after learning that the Sun Moon Palace's situation had taken a turn for the better. Instead, she directly sent a letter to the Sun Moon Palace, writing down her thoughts. If father and mother's body condition recovered well enough, then 3 months later, they would be able to appear in the Lan family. If his parents had not fully recovered, then they would wait a little longer. Anyway, she had already waited for so many years. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't mind waiting a little longer. During these days, she was cultivating in Limitless Palace while waiting for Di Beichen. She believed that Di Beichen would come to find her very soon after he had settled the matters of Tiangang sect. Actually, she had a plan in her heart. It was just that she wasn't sure if it would succeed. Master, what kind of poison did you give Lan Qinyan? Chapter 25:19. Not only Little Black, Little White and Baisher could not help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang after hearing the discussion. They were also very curious. Looking at the excited faces of the 3 little radish heads, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. These 3 little guys had always wanted to know everything. 10,000 worms gnawing on the heart. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were cold. When she went to rescue her parents, Lan Qinyan and the rest went to the dungeon to see Mu Lingbing and Lan Qinyan. When she rescued her parents, she clearly noticed the new scars on her mother's body. She didn't need to think to know that it was either Yumanlan or Lan Qinyan who had caused it. Especially the red and swollen slap on Mu Lingbing's face, it was as if it had hit her heart. From that moment on, she was determined to return all of this to Yumanlan and Lan Qinyan. Furthermore, after understanding the pain her parents had to endure, she felt that no matter what she did, she would never be able to return all of this to them. She wanted Lan Qinyan and the rest to know what pain was, and what it was like to be in so much pain that they wished they were dead. 10,000 worms gnawing on the heart? The 3 beasties' eyes lit up. Just by hearing the name, they knew that this poison was not simple. This poison should have already taken effect in Lan Qinyan's body. She will feel immense pain all over her body. Countless amounts of pain will drill out from every cell, making it impossible to avoid. Furthermore, as long as there are wounds on her body, the wounds will not heal. Every 7 days of pain, the pain will disappear for a day. However, when the pain comes again, the pain will rise to another level. When Bailey Hongzhuang was concocting this poison, she only wanted Lan Qinyan to have a taste of this pain. All these years, the pain that Lan Jingquang and his family gave them was 1,000 times, 10,000 times more painful than this. Now, she wanted them to have a good taste of what pain felt like. However, although this pain is unbearable, it won't take her life. After all, I still need to fight her head-on. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a meaningful smile. Lan Qinyan had been in the limelight for so many years because she stole her rainbow pearl. Now, she wanted to defeat Lan Qinyan with her own hands. Letting her die like this would be letting her off too easily. Most of the time, the pain in the heart was much more painful than the pain in the body. Upon hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the 3 beasts nodded. I'll let Lan Qinyan suffer for a period of time and collect some interest. In the future, she'll be in for a good time. Xiao Hei's face was filled with excitement. Ever since it saw Lan Qinyan, it hated Lan Qinyan even more. However, just as its master had said, it felt that defeating Lan Qinyan in front of everyone in the Lan clan would be the most satisfying. Xiao Bai and Bai Shi also looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with sparkling eyes. No matter what choice Master made, they would support her 100%. Right now, Lan Qinyan still did not understand why they were doing all this. However, not long after, when the Lan clan found out about all this, their expressions would be very interesting. If I'm not wrong, the Lan clan has no way of dispelling the poison that I concocted. Right now, they should have brought Lan Qinyan to the Yu clan. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a mocking smile. Everything was within her plan. Chapter 25-20. They had some understanding of Yu Siqing's attainments in the art of medicine and poison. However, in their opinion, their master's medical skills were still superior. After all, Yu Siqing took such a long time to detoxify their master's poison, causing the entire Yu clan to suffer heavy losses. Thinking about it, until now, the Yu clan still hadn't recovered from that loss. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and shook her head. The poison this time is harder to detoxify than the previous one. I'm not sure if Yu Siqing can detoxify it. Ever since the previous incident, Yu Siqing must have been working hard to make greater progress in the art of medicine and poison these days. Regardless of whether she can detoxify it or not, this poison has a time limit. After 3 months it will automatically detoxify. We just need to keep them busy for a while. Lan Qinyan wanted her to make a fool of herself in front of the Lan clan. Now, it seemed that this wasn't an easy task. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the 3 beasts finally understood. Their master wanted to see the world plunged into chaos. Preparing such a strange poison for Lan Qinyan first made the entire Lan clan shocked, then made the entire Yu clan busy. Their master deliberately didn't let them be idle. Thinking about it, the Lan clan was also surging like a storm. The young lord was poisoned, and the situation was so serious. The disturbance wasn't small. Once Lan Qinyan died, the Lan clan situation would be even more mysterious. Just these 3 months' time was enough to make the Lan clan stir up quite a lot of commotion. Originally, as the successor of the Rainbow Pearl, Lan Qinyan's position in the Lan clan was unshakable. However, there were definitely many outstanding juniors in the Lan clan. No one would be willing to be under others, not to mention that Lan Qinyan herself wasn't a virtuous young lord. As long as Lan Qinyan's situation wasn't stabilized, the changes in the Lan clan would be irreversible. I think that Yu Siqing will find it difficult to resolve this problem in a short period of time. That would be very interesting. Xiao Bai's eyes flickered with interest. She was really curious about this good show. I've already sent people to monitor the movements of the Lan clan and Yu clan. I believe there will be news in a few days. Bailey Hongzhuang was full of smiles. In the past, they had been passive for so many years. Now, it was time to create some trouble for Lan Qinyan and the others. Thinking about it, they, who were in the dark and didn't know that revenge was approaching, should be enjoying this process. Lan Jingquang and Yu Manlan accompanied Lan Qinyan all the way to the Yu clan. Ever since Lan Qinyan fell into a state of severe pain, her condition had not improved at all. Lan Qinyan could not even speak after such an action. She had fallen into a coma. Not only that, the wounds on Lan Qinyan's body were constantly bleeding. No matter what method was used, it could not be stopped. Therefore, Yu Manlan could only continuously feed Lan Qinyan blood-forming pills. Otherwise, if this continued, Lan Qinyan would have already died from excessive blood loss. In fact, Yu Manlan was also a little dissatisfied. If Lan Jingquang and the rest could have healed Lan Qinyan's arm earlier, then the current situation wouldn't be so bad. In Chapter 25-21. Jingquang, that Bailey Hongzhuang is too hateful. Her methods are so despicable. Qinyan's current state is all because of that Bailey Hongzhuang. You have to avenge Qinyan. Yu Manlan's eyes were filled with hatred. That damned Bailey Hongzhuang dared to hurt her daughter. She couldn't let her off so easily. Hearing this, Lan Jingquang's eyes were malicious and ruthless. The battle between opponents is cruel. Qinyan didn't win against her this time, so she ended up like this. If Qinyan was strong enough, the one who would end up like this would be Bailey Hongzhuang. Hearing this, Yu Manlan's expression couldn't help but change a little. Qinyan has already ended up like this. Instead of helping Qinyan vent her anger, you say such words? Yu Manlan couldn't help but be angry. Her chest heaved violently. She felt that Lan Jingquang was becoming more and more inhumane. No matter what, Lan Qinyan was still his daughter. Now that he saw his daughter suffering so much, Shouldn't Lan Jingquang's heart ache and think of ways to avenge his daughter? Lan Jingquang glanced at Yumanlan indifferently. It's because of you that Qinyan has developed such a character. The Battle of Zhuolu is a battle for the younger generation. You and I can't participate. What's the use? Are we going to charge into Limitless Palace now? Do you know how strong Limitless Palace is? Once the two sides clash, no one will have an advantage. Even if we win, the Lan family will suffer heavy losses. All of our opponents will take advantage of our weakness to take a share of the loot. Is this good for Qinyan? What a woman! Lan Jingquang couldn't hide the disgust in his eyes. He chose Yumanlan because she was a young miss from an aristocratic family. Her background was solid and her judgment wasn't bad. But now it seemed that Yumanlan was extremely stupid. She couldn't even understand such a simple problem. Every time something happened, other than being angry and anxious, Yumanlan couldn't give any meaningful suggestions. She was extremely stupid. It was because of this that he didn't want to interact with Yumanlan. He already had enough questions to think about. If he still had to answer her questions, wouldn't it be a waste of time? Following Lan Jingquang's words, Yumanlan was also stunned. She stood rooted to the ground and opened her mouth, but no words came out. Indeed, she had never thought about these problems. She only felt that Qinyan was being tortured so miserably, so she must give the other party a ruthless lesson. This was the only way for them to vent their anger. However, after hearing Lan Jingquang's explanation, she realized that she had underestimated the situation. Are we just going to do nothing and let Bailey Hongzhuang continue to be arrogant? When Yumanlan thought of this, she also felt that it was unbearable. If this was the case, then wouldn't Qinyan have suffered so much for nothing? Lan Jingquang looked at Yumanlan's helpless expression, and the disgust in his heart grew even stronger. This woman had been with her for so long, but she still didn't know how to look at the whole thing from the perspective of the family. Not to mention that Bailey Hongzhuang poisoned Lan Qinyan, they didn't have any evidence. On the contrary, the other party might even splash dirty water on them. Even if they did produce evidence, the other party was in opposition to them. They wouldn't care at all. Chapter 25-22. If the Lan family really used this reason to reason with Wuji Palace, they would become a joke in everyone's eyes. Qinyan should solve the trouble she caused herself. If you had listened to me all these years, Qinyan would have become like this again. Before you have enough confidence, don't rashly alarm the opponent. Once you make a move, you must kill the opponent. Don't try to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice used to lure it. Not only is there no effect, but it's also a joke. Lan Jingquang's expression was gloomy. If Lan Qingyan's personality was similar to his, she would have long been the head of the Lan family. Why would they need to pay attention to that old man Lan Hongtai? Since that old man's head was filled with thoughts of the dead Lan Yunxiao, then let him continue. They didn't need to pay attention to him at all. Back then, how much did he hate Lan Yunxiao? That was why he plotted all of this. In fact, he succeeded. Before he made his move, Lan Yunxiao and the rest didn't notice anything. It was because of this that Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing were caught unprepared. Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing's attitude and behavior were all within his expectations. Even if he was labeled as despicable and shameless, so what? In this game, he was the winner. Lan Yunxiao was only a prisoner. He had let Lan Yunxiao live in glory for more than 20 years, but it was only 20 years. After that, everything had nothing to do with Lan Yunxiao anymore. Now, in the Lan family, who dared to mention this matter? Except for that old man Lan Hongtai. However, he had long since stopped caring about that old man. This was enough. Hearing Lan Jingquang's words, Yumanlan was speechless. Lan Jingquang's gaze was malicious and terrifying. Seeing him like this, Yumanlan couldn't help but recall the Lan Jingquang from 19 years ago. At that time, when she learned of Lan Jingquang's thoughts, she was also shocked. However, she didn't like Mu Lingbing and chose to agree. At that time, Lan Jingquang acted like he was Lan Yunxiao's good brother in the entire Lan family. No one suspected him. What happened after that overturned everyone's understanding of Lan Jingquang. In fact, she also felt that Lan Jingquang was very terrifying. Lan Qinyan woke up in a daze and heard Lan Jingquang's word. Her heart was filled with regret. It was because she had underestimated Bailey Hongzhuang that she had ended up in this situation. If she hadn't, the situation would have been completely different. Unfortunately, at this point, she had no other choice. She only hoped that her great-aunt could remove the poison in her body as soon as possible. 3 months later, she would have a chance to compete with Bailey Hongzhuang again. When that happens, I will definitely succeed in one fell swoop and strangle that damned Bailey Hongzhuang to death. She, Lan Qinyan, would not allow any stain in her life. She would personally use her own blood to wipe away this stain. At this moment, Lan Qinyan finally understood what Lan Jingquang had taught her all these years. Lan Jingquang was right. After running around for a while, Lan Qinyan's group finally arrived at Yutian City. However, compared to the welcome Lan Qinyan and the others had received when they first arrived, the attitude of the Yu clan's people when they saw them this time was clearly a lot colder. Chapter 25-23. This situation was within Yu Manlan's expectations. When they left, they were too disloyal. It wasn't strange for them to receive such cold treatment. However, she didn't dare to continue staying here. Otherwise, it wouldn't be worth it if she was implicated and died. Lan Jingquang naturally knew where the problem lay. He felt an inexplicable sense of irritation. Yu Manlan hadn't done a single thing right during this period of time. She came to the Yu clan to play when she was full and had nothing to do. In the end, she left first after such a storm. The Yu clan was a huge support behind them. Now, a crack had appeared because of Yu Manlan's stupid actions. If they wanted to make up for it, they would have to pay a huge price. Lan Jingquang knew Yu Siqing's personality better than Yu Manlan. Yu Siqing had wanted to deal with Lan Yunxiao's family. However, because of his eagerness, he had paid a huge price. All these years, he had often given many treasures to Yu Siqing. If possible, he didn't want to interact with this woman. This woman was cold-blooded. She had no feelings, didn't care about family, and didn't care about morality. As long as she offended Yu Siqing, she could do anything. Therefore, even Lan Jingquang had to be careful when facing Yu Siqing. Once Yu Siqing was angered, even he couldn't bear the consequences. The Yu clan head was obviously disappointed in his daughter Yu Manlan. A married daughter was like water that had been poured out. She had left at such a crucial moment. Therefore, the Yu clan head was unwilling to pay attention to her. In this regard, Yu Manlan could only awkwardly please everyone. This was related to her daughter's life. "Father, is Aunt at her place now?" Yu Manlan's face was full of smiles as she probed Yu Taotian. Yu Taotian glanced at Yu Manlan indifferently. His eyes were filled with indifference. "Her place has been destroyed. It's not like you don't know. She has moved to a new place." Hearing the mockery in Yu Taotian's words, Yu Manlan felt even more awkward. However, she could only pretend that she didn't hear it. "May I know where Aunt is living now? Qinyan has been poisoned and is on the verge of death. Only Aunt can save her." Yu Taotian's expression changed when he heard this. He didn't expect Lan Qinyan to be in such a situation. Siqing has been in seclusion recently to research the art of medicine and poison. She's staying in another courtyard. You guys should go take a look. Even though he was very concerned about Lan Qinyan's situation, the displeasure on Yu Taotian's face did not dissipate. Lan Jingquang's face was full of smiles. He walked up and said, "Father-in-law, this is the jade coral I got a few days ago. I've been wanting to give it to you for a long time. I hope you like it." Yu Taotian looked at the jade coral in front of him and his expression turned slightly better. He had always liked jade, and this jade coral's design and craftsmanship were very outstanding. He fell in love with it at first glance. In comparison, he liked Lan Jingquang more than he liked Yu Manlan. Since you're already here, there's no need to bring gifts. Chapter 25-24. Father-in-law, apart from this, I also brought many gifts for mother-in-law and siblings. However, Qingyan's injuries are very serious, so we have to go and find aunt first. I hope father-in-law will forgive us. Lan Jingquang's face was brimming with a humble and courteous smile, and his words were flawless. Yu Taotian looked at Lan Jingquang with satisfaction and nodded. Qingyan's injuries are the most important. Go quickly. Yu Manlan heaved a sigh of relief when she saw Yu Taotian's attitude soften a little. Speaking of which, Lan Jingquang was the one who dealt with these matters in an orderly manner. He was able to solve these problems extremely well every time. Lan Jingquang and Yu Manlan left together. On the way, Lan Jingquang was unwilling to say anything to Yu Manlan. If not for Yu Manlan's low EQ, how could the relationship be so rigid the last time she came to the Yu clan? Every time Yu Manlan and Lan Qingyan caused trouble, he had to help clean it up. Lan Qingyan was fine, but Yu Manlan couldn't even handle this kind of matter. It was really disappointing. Whenever Yu Manlan caused such trouble, it would usually require a huge price to solve it. Thinking about it, he had given a lot of things to the Yu clan over the years. Yu Manlan naturally knew that she had caused trouble for Lan Jingquang again and didn't dare to say anything. She wasn't as good at dealing with people as Lan Jingquang. In the past, she was the young miss of the Yu clan. Her life had been smooth sailing since she was young. After marrying into the Lan clan, she didn't need to worry about these things. Very quickly, Lan Jingquang and the rest brought Lan Qingyan to Yu Siqing's new residence. Aunt was very angry about the previous matter. It won't be easy to calm her down and save Qingyan. Yu Manlan looked at Lan Jingquang with difficulty. Yu Siqing had always been cold and heartless. Only the matters of the Yu clan could move her. The main reason was that Yu Siqing wanted to live here. It would save her a lot of trouble. Although Lan Qingyan was Yu Manlan's daughter, she was still an outsider to Yu Siqing. I know. If it wasn't for your stupidity, I wouldn't have so many things to deal with. Lan Jingquang looked at Yu Manlan coldly and said, "Watch your words later. No matter what she asks, just agree to it." Yu Manlan nodded. This matter concerned Lan Qingyan's life. There couldn't be any more problems. Lan Jingquang's eyes were gloomy. He had dealt with Yu Siqing for many years and knew her very well. Before coming to the Yu clan, he was already prepared to pay the price. What happened next was just as Lan Jingquang had expected. Yu Siqing's attitude after seeing Yu Manlan was even colder than Yu Taotian's. It was as if she didn't want anyone to disturb her. Yu Manlan hurriedly told her about Lan Qingyan's poisoning. Only then did Yu Siqing close the door. "Tu was to you, so what?" Yu Manlan was dumbfounded. It seemed that Yu Siqing really didn't care about their friendship at all. Chapter 25-25. Even though they were dissatisfied, Lan Jingquang and Yu Manlan could do nothing about it. After all, the most important thing now was to save Lan Qingyan's life. Compared to some treasures, Lan Qingyan's life was more important. However, this price really made Lan Jingquang's heart ache. His anger towards Yu Manlan became even stronger. Yu Manlan also knew the anger in Lan Jingquang's heart. She felt guilty and didn't dare to say anything. It would be terrible if she angered Lan Jingquang. After checking on Lan Qingyan's condition, Yu Siqing's brows furrowed. This poison was more complicated than she had imagined. It was on the same level as the disease that appeared in the Yu clan last time. Last time, she spent a lot of time and effort to break it. In the end, she succeeded. However, the Yu clan still suffered heavy losses. It was because of the previous incident that she felt that her medical and poison skills weren't good enough. All along, she felt that her medical and poison skills were unparalleled in the entire Shengxian continent. However, after encountering the poison last time, she realized that there was always someone better than her. The other party's poison skills were even better than hers. If she didn't seize the time to improve her medical and poison skills, the next time she met this opponent, it would be terrible. Last time, she didn't know whether the other party's intention was to take revenge on her or the Yu clan. No matter what, the existence of such an opponent was an unspeakable threat. During this period of time, she had been concentrating on researching medical and poison skills in order to improve herself. The Yu clan naturally complied with all of her requests. All kinds of rare and precious materials were sent to her. Now that Lan Jingquang and Yu Manlan had delivered themselves to her, she naturally had to ask for more. These things were very useful to her. However, she didn't expect to encounter this level of poison in Lan Qingyan's body. This was really not simple. After Yu Manlan and Lan Jingquang noticed the change in Yu Xiqing's expression, their hearts couldn't help but sink. It seemed that the situation was much worse than they had imagined. Do you know who poisoned her? Yu Xiqing didn't immediately diagnose Lan Qingyan's condition after checking. Instead, she turned around and looked at Lan Jingquang and Yu Manlan. It was not easy for the other party to possess such a level of poison. However, whether the other party had obtained such a poison by chance or had a poison master of such caliber backing him, that would require another judgment. Bailey Hongzhuang. Yu Manlan responded immediately. Bailey Hongzhuang? Yu Xiqing raised her eyebrows. There was a trace of unfamiliarity between her brows. She had never heard of this name. Who is this person? Limitless Palace has just chosen a young palace master. She and Qingyan had quite a bit of conflict during the Battle of Zhuolu. Qingyan's current state is also related to her, Lan Jingquang said in a deep voice. Hearing this, Yu Xiqing finally understood. Originally, she was very worried that the opponent might be targeting them specifically. However, she didn't have any dealings with Limitless Palace. Thinking about it, this was just a dispute between young people. It was just a coincidence. Thinking of this, Yu Xiqing also relaxed a little. And how is Qingyan? Can this poison be cured? Chapter 25-26. This poison is very complicated. It's definitely not a poison that an ordinary poison master can concoct. From Qingyan's pulse, there are no signs of poisoning. Other than being a little weak, there are no other problems. Even for me, I can only be sure that Qingyan has been poisoned. However, I don't know what kind of poison it is or how to detoxify it. I need time. Yu Xiqing explained the situation frankly. Based on what she knew, it was most likely a neurotoxin. However, she had no idea how to treat it. Because there were no clues from her pulse, there were no signs of poisoning from Lan Qingyan's appearance. At this moment, Lan Qingyan only showed pain and weakness. However, her lips were not purple and there were no signs of poisoning in other parts of her body. She had to extract the poisoned blood to be able to determine the cause. However, based on her experience, judging from the other party's secretive nature, it was definitely not an easy task to determine the cause. Hearing Yu Xiqing's words, Yu Manlan and Lan Jingquang's hearts sank. Even with Yu Xiqing's medical skills, she could still say such words. This proved that this poison was not just difficult to detoxify. Lan Qingyan was obviously in great pain every day. They had no idea how long she could hold on. And, based on Qingyan's current state, I'm afraid she can't hold on for long, right? Lan Jingquang asked slowly in a deep voice. His eyes shone with worry. Although Lan Qingyan had made a big mistake earlier, he was only angry. If something happened to Lan Qingyan, it would be terrible. Yu Xiqing glanced at Lan Qingyan and continued, if the other party wanted Qingyan's life, they could have directly used a poison that would kill her immediately. However, the other party didn't. From the effects of the poison so far, the other party wants to see Qingyan in pain and torture her. Therefore, Qingyan will be fine for a short period of time. She will just have to suffer a lot. When she said this, Yu Manlan and Lan Jingquang's expressions changed. They didn't know if this news was good or bad news. That Bailey Hongzhuang is really too vicious. To actually use such a despicable method to torture Qingyan, simply abominable to the extreme. Yumanlan was so angry that her face turned ashen. The previous matter had already made her extremely angry. Now that she knew Bailey Hongzhuang's original intention, she was about to explode. Even if they had formed quite a bit of enmity during the Battle of Zhuolu, there was no need to use such a vicious method, right? Although she could not personally experience Lan Qingyan's pain, she could tell from Lan Qingyan's expression that this kind of pain was not something an ordinary person could endure. According to what you said, that Bailey Hongzhuang is only 20 years old. This poison should not be made by her. She might have obtained it by chance. Yu Siqing analyzed. For a poison of this level, the other party must have been immersed in the art of poison for a long time, and his attainments in it were astonishing. Her understanding of the art of medicine and poison was far superior to that of ordinary people, but until now, she still had no idea how to deal with this kind of poison. The other party should be about the same age as her. Yumanlan and Lan Jingquang looked at each other. If this was really the case, then Qingyan was unlucky. However, this result also made them feel more at ease. Chapter 25-27. Aunt, I'll leave the poison in Qingyan's body to you. You must cure Qingyan. Yumanlan looked at Yu Siqing expectantly. Yu Siqing was their only hope now. If even Yu Siqing couldn't cure Lan Qingyan, then they really didn't know what to do. If Bailey Hongzhuang had the antidote, then it would be fine. They might be able to get the antidote back by paying a price. But according to Yu Siqing's judgment, Bailey Hongzhuang only got the poison by chance. Then Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't possibly have the antidote. Wouldn't that be terrible? Yu Siqing nodded calmly. I'll do my best. But I can't guarantee the result. To her, this kind of poison was also a challenge. However, every new poison would open a new door for her. Therefore, she didn't mind deciphering it. Now, she could no longer underestimate the power of this kind of poison. So she couldn't guarantee anything. After all, when the Yu clan was in trouble last time, she was confident that there wouldn't be any problems. But in the end, the Yu clan suffered a great loss. Hearing Yu Siqing's words, Yumanlan and Lan Jingquang looked at each other. Just from Yu Siqing's attitude, they could tell that Yu Siqing didn't have enough confidence. Whether or not Lan Qingyan could be saved would depend on Lan Qingyan's luck. Even though the two of them were indescribably anxious, there was no other way except for this method. They could only pin all their hopes on Yu Siqing. Aunt, then we'll have to trouble you, Lan Jingquang said in a deep voice. If there's anything you need, just let us know. Yu Siqing nodded and said, You guys go out first. I have to hurry. No one knew how long Lan Qingyan could hold on. But under this kind of pain, the torture for a cultivator was extremely terrifying. Hearing this, Lan Jingquang and Yumanlan didn't dare to continue wasting Yu Siqing's time. Based on the current situation, the more time they wasted, the more pain Lan Qingyan would have to endure. Bailey Hongzhuang had always been cultivating in Limitless Palace. When she participated in the Battle of Zhuolu, her strength had a huge breakthrough. Although it was good to break through several levels in a row, Bailey Hongzhuang had to pay attention to other problems. Therefore, during this period of time, she had been cultivating on the stairway to heaven. The Primal Chaos Tablet helped her raise her cultivation level, but that was only in terms of cultivation level, and her elemental energy density was still a distance away. Taking advantage of this period of time, she had to make up for this gap as soon as possible. If she ignored the existence of this problem, then it would be much more difficult for her to break through in the future. All this time, she had never encountered any bottlenecks in her breakthrough. On one hand, it was because she already had a certain understanding of this kind of breakthrough in her previous life. On the other hand, it was because of her solid foundation. To a cultivator, the most important thing was their foundation. Once the foundation was unstable, it was like building a house. Problems could occur at any time. Yu Linfeng and Nangong Wu saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was so bitterly cultivating, and the two of them felt gratified. Hong Zhuang's success was all for a reason. Even though she had such a great achievement this time, she still didn't have the slightest bit of pride or complacency. Chapter 25-28. A few days later, Di Beichen had successfully arrived at Limitless Palace. Compared to the time when Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang first came to Limitless Palace, many disciples didn't know about Di Beichen's identity. After the Battle of Zhuolu, the relationship between their young palace mistress and Tiangang's young sect master was known by the disciples of Limitless Palace. For a moment, all the female disciples were envious of Bailey Hongzhuang. Tiangang's young sect master Di Beichen was the dream lover of many girls. Now, he had been captured by their young palace mistress. What's more, Li Yangbing and the others had vividly described the domineering performance of their young palace mistress and Di Beichen in the Battle of Zhuolu. Especially when facing the Lan family's young master, Di Beichen's reaction was simply too cool. Therefore, everyone had been looking forward to the appearance of Di Beichen. Once their young palace mistress and Di Beichen were together, the relationship between Limitless Palace and Tiangang sect would be unshakable. At that time, Limitless Palace's status would also rise. This was a great thing. When Di Beichen arrived at Limitless Palace, he noticed that many disciples were looking at him with admiration. Those whispers and discussions accompanied him all the way. He could vaguely hear the discussions of the crowd, and the corner of his lips couldn't help but reveal a smile. It seemed that Bailey Hongzhuang was living well in Limitless Palace during this period of time. All the discussions he heard about Bailey Hongzhuang were praises and support. The results of the Battle of Zhuolu had completely changed Limitless Palace's view of Bailey Hongzhuang. For a long time, no matter where Hongzhuang appeared, she would always be questioned. Now that such a situation had occurred, Di Beichen was truly happy for Bailey Hongzhuang. Soon, Di Beichen arrived at Bailey Hongzhuang's palace. Seeing that Di Beichen had arrived, Bailey Hongzhuang's face instantly revealed a joyful smile. "Beichen, you're here." Di Beichen's handsome face had a faint smile, and quickly walked to Bailey Hongzhuang's side. "I rushed over immediately after I finished settling my matters. Did you miss me during this period of time?" The three beasts sat quietly at the side, swinging their feet and sniggering. Bailey Hongzhuang pursed her lips. "Yes, I missed you so much." As soon as these words came out, Di Beichen's eyes widened. His wife was indeed getting bolder and bolder. "Since Bailey Hongzhuang, naturally, I'll have to perform well." Di Beichen's smile grew wider and wider. He opened his arms and hugged Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang was stunned for a moment when she was suddenly hugged. However, she did not reject him, and a smile appeared in her eyes. Now that all the top forces in the Shengxian continent knew about their relationship, this feeling was somewhat different from before. Even if they had not held a wedding ceremony, it was open and aboveboard. Bailey Hongzhuang wrapped her arms around Di Beichen's back and slowly closed her eyes. Her entire body was extremely relaxed. There was only one battle left to fight. After that, she would be completely at ease, and that day was not far away. Di Beichen could feel the change in Bailey Hongzhuang's state of mind. Immediately, the arm that was hugging Bailey Hongzhuang tightened. Hongzhuang had shed a lot of burden compared to before. Just from her performance alone, one could see that. Chapter 25-29. Following the sound of footsteps from afar, Di Beichen let go of Bailey Hongzhuang and turned around to see Yu Linfeng and Nangong Wu slowly walking towards them. After seeing Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang, Nangong Wu and Yu Linfeng's faces also revealed a big smile. "I'm really looking forward to the day you two get married," Nangong Wu said with a smile. "Hongzhuang will definitely be the most beautiful bride in the world." Although she didn't know how Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang met, seeing how close the two of them were and how they had supported each other along the way, she knew that the relationship between the two of them was incomparable to that of ordinary people. She only hoped that Bailey Hongzhuang would be able to complete her revenge as soon as possible and enjoy the happiness that belonged to her. Hearing Nangong Wu's words, Di Baichen and Bailey Hongzhuang's faces revealed a smile. That day was not far away. Hongzhuang, send people to keep an eye on the movements of the Lan family and the Yu family. The news has already been sent back, Nangong Wu said slowly. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. What's the situation now? She had been waiting for this specific news. Only after confirming it could she confirm the next step of the plan. It said that Lan Qingyan's poison acted up not long after she returned to the Lan family. No one in the Lan family could treat her, so they hurriedly sent Lan Qingyan to the Yu family. The three beasties also came to Bailey Hongzhuang's side. It seems that the situation was exactly as their master had thought. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a playful smile. This situation was already within her expectations. It seemed that Lan Qingyan's life was not easy now. Nangong Wu and the rest noticed Bailey Hongzhuang's smile and understood. Hongzhuang, you poisoned her? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded her head, frankly admitting it. That's right. When Lan Qingyan and I clashed during the Battle of Zhuolu, I fed her this poison. As soon as she said this, Nangong Wu and the others looked at each other, but they all felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was right. Compared to what Lan Jingquang did to Bailey Hongzhuang's family, this was nothing. According to the news from the spies, Lan Qingyan's poison was not fatal, but extremely painful. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. This poison itself is not fatal, but it is very torturous. She would not let Lan Qingyan die so easily, because she still had many things to do. Only when all these things were revealed to Lan Jingquang's family, that would be the most important moment. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's reply, the three of them could not help but be stunned. So, was Bailey Hongzhuang deliberately teasing the Lan family? The Lan family thought that Lan Qingyan was going to die and hurriedly sent her to the Yu family. I'm afraid that the Lan family is not peaceful during this period. If they knew the true effects of this poison, I'm afraid they would be angered to death. Nangong Wu's face also showed a playful smile. It seemed that this situation was more interesting than she had imagined. Di Baichen also knew about the poison during the Battle of Zhuolu, but he did not care. No matter what Hongzhuang did, his attitude was only one: support. The Yu family's Yu Siqing's medical and poison skills are very good. Can she neutralize this poison? Yu Linfeng, who had been silent all this while, slowly spoke up. Chapter 25:30. Hearing this, Nangong Wu and the others couldn't help but think of the disaster caused by Bailey Hongzhuang's poison in the Yu clan. In terms of medical and poison skills, Yu Siqing might not be Bailey Hongzhuang's opponent. In any case, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't intend to use this opportunity to kill Lan Qingyan. As long as she could stall for some time, it would be enough. According to the news from the Yu clan, after Lan Jingquang and his group went to the Yu clan, they were given the cold shoulder. Because of the previous incident, the Yu clan had some complaints about Yu Manlan and Lan Qingyan, so they didn't welcome them this time. However, after Lan Jingquang gave them a lot of gifts, the situation changed. It's said that in order for Yu Siqing to treat Lan Qingyan, Lan Jingquang paid a big price. Di Baichen frowned. Yu Siqing is Lan Qingyan's great-aunt. Does she need to ask for a reward for treating Lan Qingyan? Yu Linfeng nodded and said slowly, You don't know this. Yu Manlan is famous for being cold-blooded and heartless. Even if it's her own people, if you want her to treat someone, you have to see if she's in a good mood. Besides, the previous incident made her feel resentful. It's not strange for her to do something like this. Her ink-black phoenix eyes were filled with coldness. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but sigh. If you're not a family, you won't enter the same house. No matter if it's Yu Siqing or Lan Jingquang, their family only valued benefits and not feelings. Therefore, their way of interacting was also like this. It was really amazing. If Lan Jingquang's family had the slightest bit of affection, they wouldn't have treated them so poorly. Now that they had to pay such a price, they deserved it. Is there any progress on Yu Siqing's treatment of Lan Qinyan? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Nangong Wu shook her head. It's said that Yu Siqing is thinking of a way to cure the poison. However, from Lan Jingquang and the others' serious expressions, I'm afraid that Yu Siqing doesn't have enough confidence. At this point, Nangong Wu couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang in amazement. Her ability was really amazing. If Lan Jingquang and the others knew that there was an enemy like Bailey Hongzhuang waiting for revenge from afar, they would not be able to eat or sleep in peace. They didn't have much time left. It wouldn't be long before everything would be revealed to them. That's good news. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a faint smile. The Lan family had spent a large amount of resources, and Yu Siqing's medical and poison skills had also been questioned. From the looks of it, it will be very difficult for Yu Siqing to harm you at the divine pond of ice and snow in 3 months. Di Beichen's face was relaxed. Initially, he was worried that they would encounter a lot of problems after going to the Lan family. Now that Lan Qinyan had become like this, the entire Lan family was in turmoil. Thinking about it, by the time they went to the divine pond of ice-snow, Lan Qinyan might not be able to participate. This poison will probably be cured in less than 3 months. At least in these 3 months, Lan Qinyan's strength won't be able to increase by much. Everyone in the Lan family is focused on this matter. I'm afraid that they won't have the energy to pay attention to me. At this time, Yu Linfeng's voice rang out again. Next month is the Yu family's day to recruit doctors. Every time the Yu family recruits doctors, it's a big event in Yu Tian City. I just don't know if the Yu family will continue to hold it this time.